Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. Luo Feng was immersed in comprehension, and when he stopped, he found that the sky had already darkened and Morosa was sitting there idly, bored to death. Master, are you awake? Morosa showed a look of joy. While I was cultivating, you just sat here like a fool. Luo Feng said. Why didn't you go take a stroll around within Huyang City? I was only comprehending the laws, not turning into an idiot. If an outsider touched the formation of the cave mansion, I would have immediately interrupted my comprehension. With an ingratiating tone, Morosa said, enjoying food and entertainment can be done at any time, but when master is cultivating, I must guard diligently, as it is the most important matter. Ha ha, well said. Luo Feng stood up. Alright, let's go out for a bit and sell that blue-purple blood crystal flower. Master, which establishment are you planning to sell it to? Morosa also stood up. Of course, the Flame Wind Pavilion. Luo Feng said, and right away the two of them had left the house. Sir, the novelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Moments later, Luo Feng and Morosa were already looking at the distant and majestic Flame Wind Pavilion from afar. Among the countless buildings in Huyang City, the main building of the Flame Wind Pavilion was second in height only to the city owner's mansion. The safest place in the entire Huyang City is this Flame Wind Pavilion, Luo Feng said. Even if Huyang City were to be destroyed, this Flame Wind Pavilion would remain unscathed. Oh? Morosa was amazed, as his understanding of the land of origin came from Luo Feng. The Flame Wind Pavilion represents the Flame Wind Ancient Country, Luo Feng said. Inside the Flame Wind Ancient Country, some powerful forces have come together to establish the Flame Wind Pavilion, and their business spans across most of the land of origin. Even in wars between divine kingdoms, they wouldn't dare to touch the Flame Wind Pavilion. Because to do so would be to disgrace the Flame Wind Ancient Country, Luo Feng laughed. The consequences would be severe. Morosa nodded in realization, what a strong background. No matter the treasures, they can buy and they can sell. Luo Feng said. They are the safest trading partners. This blue-purple blood crystal flower was enough to make some eternal true gods green with envy and go insane. To ensure a stable transaction, Luo Feng did not hesitate to choose trading with the Flame Wind Pavilion. The Flame Wind Pavilion covered a vast area, with many buildings, and the main building particularly catered to guests from all directions. Whoosh! Upon arriving at the entrance of the main building, Luo Feng and Morosa were immediately met by an attendant who came forward to greet them. Divine Monarch, please come inside. The attendant enthusiastically led them into a private hall. Divine Monarch, this is Chun Mi wine from the Flame Wind Ancient Country, please have a taste. The attendant poured the wine, a cup of which would be worth several primal chaos crystals in the Flame Wind Ancient Country, and was simply not available for purchase in Huyang City. Chun Mi wine. Luo Feng picked up a cup, took a sip, and felt a light, refreshing taste spreading through his soul and consciousness. Let's talk business. I'm here to sell a blue-purple blood crystal flower, Luo Feng said, turning his hand and placing a wooden box on the long table in front of him. Blue-purple blood crystal flower. The attendant was somewhat surprised. Despite being used to catering to eternal true gods, he was still a bit shocked. He immediately opened the wooden box, and saw a seemingly ordinary blue-purple blood crystal flower. Within the Flame Wind Pavilion, a formation activated, enveloping the blue-purple blood crystal flower in light, and instantly completing the appraisal. This blue-purple blood crystal flower is fully mature, well harvested and preserved, and of superior quality. Based on the current market value, the Flame Wind Pavilion is willing to buy it for 120,000 cosmic sands, said the attendant. How does that sound to the Divine Monarch? Okay, Luo Feng readily nodded in agreement. He was well aware of the Flame Wind Pavilion's rules, that for treasures valued below 10 million cosmic sand, bargaining was generally not entertained. For various exotic treasures from heaven and earth, the Flame Wind ancient country's headquarters had clear pricing for different levels, and its branches had no authority to adjust them. Then this blue-purple blood crystal flower belongs to my Flame Wind Pavilion. The attendant repositioned the blue-purple blood crystal flower, and at the same time, a cyan jade vial appeared out of thin air on the table. The attendant handed the cyan jade vial to Luo Feng. Divine Monarch, there are 120,000 cosmic sand inside. Please verify. Luo Feng took the vial and with a brief sensation, confirmed it was correct. The transaction is settled, the attendant said with a smile. Divine Monarch, is there anything else I can do for you? I also need to purchase some artifact refining materials. Here's the material list, Luo Feng said, handing over a prepared list to the other party. The total cost for the materials is 100,000 cosmic sand. The majority of the cosmic sand earned from selling the blue-purple blood crystal flower would be spent. 100,000 cosmic sand to buy all these materials. The attendant was astonished. Most of these materials are fairly common. If we go by the list, that would be a very large quantity. We might need to move entire mountains for some materials. Are you sure you want to spend all 100,000 cosmic sand on these? Can the Flame Wind Pavilion gather them all? Luo Feng asked. The attendant confidently smiled. No need to worry about that, even if it's 100 times, or 1,000 times more, the Flame Wind Pavilion can summon them from other places. As for your needs, we have ample stock in our storerooms. It will be delivered in the time it takes to drink a cup of wine. Good, then please arrange it quickly, Luo Feng nodded. Besides purchasing these materials, I would also like to apply to join the Flame Wind Pavilion's Dark Hall. The attendant smiled slightly. Once you join the Dark Hall of our Flame Wind Pavilion, you can actively post tasks, accept tasks, and purchase intelligence. As an eternal true god, you can join the Dark Hall without review or fees. As an organization that spans most of the land of origin. Of course, Flame Wind Pavilion engages in the business of intelligence, as well as offering bounties for tasks. These kinds of businesses are all undertaken in the name of the Dark Hall. The more clients the Dark Hall has, the better, so the threshold to enter is very low. One can join the Dark Hall with sufficient strength or wealth. Divine Monarch will need a code name within the Dark Hall, the attendant said. After thinking for a moment, Luo Feng replied, call me Bladesman. All right, your application has been successful. The attendant flipped his hand and passed a transmission token to Luo Feng. This is the Dark Hall's transmission order. With it, you can contact the Dark Hall within large cities. Whether it's purchasing intelligence, posting or accepting tasks, everything can be done through this transmission token. If the transmission token is lost or damaged, you can also have it reissued at the Flame Wind Pavilion. Luo Feng took the Dark Hall's transmission order, which was fixed to contact only the Dark Hall. A set of basic intelligence on the various countries of the land of origin. Luo Feng decided to try purchasing intelligence first. Divine Monarch, as you've just joined the Dark Hall, and being an eternal true god, you have a sum of 1,000 cosmic sand available on credit, which must be repaid within 1 era. Otherwise, the penalty will be 10 times the outstanding amount, the attendant reminded. The intelligence I'm purchasing costs 10 cosmic sand. I'll pay you first. Luo Feng paid straight away. At the same time, he was reviewing the piece of intelligence just sent through the Dark Hall's transmission order. It was a basic report on the countries of the land of origin, including maps, cities, and other fundamental information. Naturally, Luo Feng was most interested in the intelligence about the Sha Kingdom. Sha Kingdom, a total of 5 masters. This information was rightfully basic intelligence, merely stating a total of 5 masters regarding the Sha Kingdom's masters. As for the godly king level beings, what powers they had, what secret treasures they possessed, there was not a single record. Luo Feng's expression changed slightly. The Sha Kingdom has 5 masters now. When Master Mountain Sitting Guest fled to the Universe Ocean, there were only 3 masters in the Sha Kingdom. Luo Feng thought, the Yu Kingdom hasn't changed much, still with 5 godly kings. During the time Master fled, the Sha Kingdom has grown stronger. Luo Feng accepted this quite naturally. Mountain Sitting Guest had fled the land of origin, and in the primordial cosmos, he had gone through an entire reincarnation era, even nurturing an outstanding individual like Luo Feng. With the aggressive nature of the Shi kingdom, it was natural for changes to occur over such a long period. 3 masters. 5 masters. For Luo Feng, who was still just an eternal true god, there wasn't much of a difference. He wasn't at the godly king level, so he couldn't get involved at all. The Dark Hall still has a large number of bounties. Divine monarchs can take a look as well, said the attendant. Luo Feng nodded. He effortlessly saw numerous bounty tasks, including protection duties, hiring tasks, assassination tasks, and so on. There's a bounty to kill the highest commander of the Huyang Legion, Mo Li Xiao. Luo Feng was surprised to see this task. The highest commander of Huyang's 10 great legions was one of the most powerful rulers in the entire Huyang city. Even the city lord's power might not necessarily surpass that of this highest commander. Yet, there was a bounty in the Flame Wind Association's Dark Hall. As long as there's a client brave enough to issue a task, our Flame Wind Pavilion will dare to place a bounty, the attendant said with a smile. Even if it's a godly king, our Flame Wind Pavilion will post a bounty just the same. The Flame Wind Pavilion indeed has such strength, Luo Feng nodded. Suddenly, a black jade vial appeared out of nowhere, which the attendant handed to Luo Feng. Divine Monarch, all the artifact refining materials you requested are here, please inspect them. After Luo Feng took it, he saw a massive pile of materials heaped like a mountain. With a single thought, he checked everything thoroughly. There's nothing missing, only extra. Luo Feng was very satisfied. With some common materials, we only add more, said the attendant. Luo Feng nodded, then got up and instructed Morosa, let's go. The attendant personally saw Luo Feng out. Inside one of the small buildings of the Flame Wind Pavilion, a figure made of grey fog was leisurely browsing through one piece of information after another when suddenly a burly man walked in. Pavilion Master, the eyes of the figure of grey fog, which were made of mist, looked towards the burly figure. As the Pavilion Master, you leave all matters of the Flame Wind Pavilion to me, an old fellow, to handle entirely by myself. Second uncle, I've troubled you, the burly man immediately said with a smile. What I regret most now is agreeing to the ancestor, always following and protecting you. Who would have thought that after leaving the Flame Wind ancient country, you'd wander for over 1,000 eras, and still not return, said the figure of grey fog. When do you plan on returning to the clan? I'm starting to miss home. I plan to break through to the primal chaos realm before going back, said the burly man. You, as part of Emperor Chu's lineage and with noble blood, haven't cultivated the bloodline cultivation method, but pursued understanding of the laws. I knew of your ambition then, the figure of grey fog remarked. You initially became a true god with unlimited godly bodies without relying on bloodline, and every step you take will be difficult. Actually, our clan's elders usually cultivate their bloodlines first, and only when they hit a bottleneck do they turn to understand the laws. The burly man shook his head, a hint of disdain in his eyes. After taking the straightforward path for countless years and then turning to the difficult road, how many can succeed? They are all mediocre. The figure of grey fog nodded in approval. If you continue along the path of the laws and become a primal chaos overlord, after you return, the clan will certainly train you with all their resources. Because every godly king on the land of origin had broken through by understanding the laws. Becoming a primal chaos overlord is very difficult, the burly figure nodded. The primal chaos laws are much too arcane. He was born on the land of origin, so from a young age, he had a crystal clear sense of various laws. Therefore, he felt that the farther he went, the more difficult it became. Luo Feng was different. In the era of the primordial cosmos, sensing the laws was extremely vague. So when he arrived at the land of origin, Luo Feng was overjoyed. He found the understanding of the primal chaos laws to be rapidly improving. The figure of grey fog saw a new piece of information that had just appeared before him, glanced at it, and then told the burly figure beside him, Pavilion Master, a new eternal true god has come to Huyang City, and has also become a client of our Dark Hall, with the codename Bladesman. Oh, I see, the burly figure nodded. Both of them didn't pay much attention. As descendants of Emperor Chu's lineage from the Flame Wind ancient country, they were entitled to overlook most eternal true gods in Huyang City. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Luo Feng and Morosa returned to the cave mansion. I will go into reclusive training for some time. You are free to do as you please, Luo Feng instructed. Remember, don't cause any trouble for me. Don't worry, master. Morosa immediately responded enthusiastically. Only then did Luo Feng turn and enter the underground grand hall of the cave mansion. As soon as he entered, the multilayered mechanisms of the grand hall shut down and formations were sealed off. This underground grand hall was specifically used for cultivation in solitude, but Luo Feng still found it too small. With a wave of his hand, he brought out the Star Tower. Whoosh! Luo Feng entered the Star Tower. The Star Tower itself contained vast space, allowing Luo Feng to cultivate to his heart's content without worrying about damaging a single thing. Begin to cultivate the Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram. Luo Feng sat cross-legged and began his first secluded training on the land of origin. In one of the floors of the Star Tower, within a vast and boundless space, sat Luo Feng cross-legged, his body beginning to grow in size. Grow. 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 From his original stature, just one blade's height above an average true god, Luo Feng's height surged in the blink of an eye, far surpassing the elegant mountain range, over 100,000 kilometers, high near his cave mansion. Not even one of his small toe could compare to that mountain range. The space-time of the land of origin is extremely stable and suppressive. True gods are generally about one blade's height. Now that I am showing my true size, I am only 120 million kilometers tall. Gazing down on his majestic true body, Luo Feng contemplated, the suppression of the land of origin is indeed too strong. If I were in the surrounding regions of the primordial cosmos, my godly body would be many times larger. In different regions, whether it's the speed of time flow or the pressure of space, the environment is drastically different. In the regions of the primordial cosmos, the stature of true gods is extremely large. I broke through from the true god level to the eternal true god level in a short period of time. My perfect divine body hasn't grown to its limit. Luo Feng was very clear that his microcosm was ceaselessly absorbing primal chaos current and transforming it into divine power, continuously fueling the growth of his godly body. Every moment, he was growing taller. 120 million kilometers was just a height during the developmental phase. Accumulated over the long years of the land of origin, there are not a few who possess unlimited godly bodies. Luo Feng had a wealth of information about unlimited godly bodies. Among his predecessors of Duandong River, 2 of them had unlimited godly bodies. How tall could a perfect divine body grow in the stage of an eternal true god? Luo Feng didn't know, because there was no precedent. But he understood the height of unlimited godly bodies. An unlimited godly body at the level of an eternal true god, under the environment of the land of origin, can reach a maximum height of 3.6 billion kilometers. Luo Feng thought, I have a perfect divine body, so my growth limit should be even higher. Let's just develop gradually. Luo Feng sat cross-legged with closed eyes and began to delve into the study of the Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram. Having a perfect divine body, Luo Feng naturally wanted to make the most of his advantage. He carefully selected from the massive heritages he had obtained and chose the body refining secret technique, Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram. To refine the godly body like a secret treasure weapon, a weapon that is 100 kilometers tall and one that is 100 million kilometers tall have vastly different powers, even if the principles of their creation are similar. Luo Feng studied and understood meticulously this body refining secret technique. The Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram appeared to be a common body refining method of the primal chaos realm, but it was very suitable for those with large godly bodies. This method was divided into 6 layers. The first 3 layers were at the eternal level. The last 3 layers were at the primal chaos realm level. Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram, first layer foundation building. With a thought, Luo Feng summoned a small amount of artifact refining materials and began to use the secret technique to melt them. With the strength of Luo Feng's perfect divine power, melting the materials was quite effortless. Even if he understood the technique of melting, it required repeated trials. Artifact refining is not easy. And it's even harder to refine eternal true God level weapons. Luo Feng learned the various artifact refining techniques recorded in the secret technique, naturally encountering all sorts of difficulties during the learning process. The characteristics of the materials, their combination, engraving formation diagrams, how different formation diagrams combine. Time after time, he encountered difficulties and then solved them. Fortunately, I became an eternal true God through understanding the essence of laws. Luo Feng couldn't help but reflect while studying the artifact refining secret technique. Those who became eternal true gods through bloodline cultivation know how things work, but not why. Without understanding the essence of laws, their difficulty in learning artifact refining secret techniques is probably much greater. In fact, any top secret technique is not easy to master. Even if one acquires a secret technique, there is no guarantee it can be perfected. The path of cultivation gets harder the further one advances. Only those who understand the essence of the laws, and take each step solidly, can hope to reach the godly king level. Time passed. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Each day in the land of origin is equivalent to about 1 year in the primordial cosmos. Considering also that time flows faster in the primordial cosmos, a second here passed as 10,081 seconds there. So, 1 day passed in the land of origin meant a staggering 10,081 years had passed in the primordial cosmos, that is, an era. Luo Feng's microcosm, with a diameter of 100 billion light-years, crazily absorbed the primal chaos current and condensed it into divine power, connected to Luo Feng's true God's heart, providing for the growth of his godly body. Inside the star tower, Luo Feng, with a height of 120 million kilometers, was also slowly growing taller. 130 million kilometers, 140 million kilometers, 200 million kilometers, 300 million kilometers. As his height increased, the more divine power he needed, and the slower the rate of growth became. Immersed in the study of the primal chaos great strength diagram, Luo Feng lost track of time. Ha ha ha, each occupation has its own specialities. Fortunately, I have a deeper understanding of the laws, and luckily this is just the first layer foundation building of the primal chaos great strength diagram. I've finally got it all figured out, Luo Feng laughed heartily. Oh? It was only then that Luo Feng noticed he had grown quite a bit taller. My height has reached 800 million kilometers. This height seemed trivial to Luo Feng. After all, according to the information he had, unlimited godly bodies could reach a height of 36 billion kilometers at the stage of an eternal true God. My godly body is still growing. It would be most appropriate to refine it once it has finished developing, Luo Feng thought. Otherwise, refining the body while it was still growing would waste a lot of materials. Time to explore other secret techniques. Luo Feng was captivated by his cultivation. Having just become an eternal true God, he naturally improved in all aspects as he practiced various secret techniques. And the feeling of continuous growth was very addictive. World-breaking 9 blades, Lai Yuan technique, Duan Mie, Dong Hua, 9 netherworlds, Luo Feng, in his state of seclusion, was completely immersed in them. He could also sense the manifestation of primal chaos laws in the neighboring primal chaos ruins at any time. Studying various secret techniques while observing the primal chaos laws, Luo Feng felt insights flooding into his mind. The collision of different secret techniques, combined with Luo Feng's extraordinary talent, made rapid progress all but inevitable. To be able to cultivate to an eternal true God in the primordial cosmos region. To cultivate a perfect divine body in such an environment, and to have ones will reach the pinnacle of primal chaos. Luo Feng's talent was beyond doubt. Immersion in cultivation caused time to continually pass by. When Luo Feng had researched several secret techniques for a while, one day, his increasingly majestic godly body suddenly stopped growing. In the small universe of the primordial cosmos region, which was at its limit of absorbing primal chaos current, suddenly slowed down the absorption. Luo Feng's godly body also shook, halting his cultivation. My godly body, it's not growing any longer. Luo Feng felt new divine power accumulating in the true God's heart, but could no longer make the godly body grow. At last, it has grown to the limit of the eternal true God stage. Unknowingly, it's been 1.2 billion days since I came to the land of origin, over an era already, Luo Feng thought. An era on the land of origin equates to 10 billion days. Luo Feng had sequestered himself for just over an era, and in that time, 1.2 billion eras had already passed in the primordial cosmos region. The small universe had continued to absorb energy for such a long time, allowing Luo Feng's godly body to grow to its limit. My current godly body height. With a slight sensing, Luo Feng became clear of his current height. It has grown to a height of 180 billion kilometers. That's 5 times the ultimate height of 36 billion kilometers for unlimited godly bodies. His height was 5-fold. The vastness of his divine power was more than 100-fold. Even in the time-space environment of the land of origin, my height has reached 180 billion kilometers. I am even taller than the walls of Huyang City, which are probably around the level of my knees, Luo Feng mused. With such a massive godly body, those primal chaos overlords, who do not possess unlimited godly bodies are probably not as tall as me. According to the intelligence he had, those who cultivated their bloodlines to become primal chaos overlords, no matter how special their bloodlines, or how formidable their secret techniques, had not exceeded a height of 100 billion kilometers. Of course, in terms of the quality of divine power, insights into the primal chaos laws, and weapon secret treasures, those primal chaos overlords were far superior to him. Even if it were the secret technique of willpower. The secret technique of willpower, which was relatively rare on the land of origin, was something primal chaos overlords could easily acquire several of, perhaps nowhere close to Lai Yuan technique, but they also had various application techniques. Those who were able to cultivate to the primal chaos realm had their wills toughened to great strength. Combined with the secret technique of willpower, it was very hard for Luo Feng to even think of heavily damaging his opponents with his will alone. Now, I still fall significantly short in all respects when compared to the primal chaos overlords, Luo Feng felt, sensing the vast divine power contained within his 180 billion kilometer tall godly body. Since the godly body has grown to its limit, it's time to commence full body refinement. With a thought, the vast materials stored in the star tower flew out, with Luo Feng skillfully beginning to smelt the materials, precisely controlling the proportions, and gradually fusing them into every part of his godly body. Each step of the foundation building, in the first layer of the primal chaos great strength diagram, had been thoroughly practiced by Luo Feng, and he had experimented with a small amount of materials, therefore, full body refinement now went exceedingly smoothly. Days passed by. Refining a secret treasure that was as tall as 180 billion kilometers, even when fully understanding all the steps, was an exceedingly complicated task. With Luo Feng's powerful will, his meticulousness in inscribing every formation diagram ensured there were no mistakes, and it finally took him more than 300 days to complete the first layer of the primal chaos great strength diagram. At last, I've refined the first layer, Luo Feng exhaled in relief. The artifact refiner materials I spent 100,000 cosmic sands to buy are almost used up. Luo Feng felt somewhat melancholic. Just for foundation building, such a vast amount of materials was consumed. Luo Feng now also realized the only downside of his godly body being too large, which was the horrifying consumption of body refinement, 100,000 cosmic sands. I thought I prepared enough, but it turned out to be barely sufficient to complete the simplest first layer. Sir the novel.I.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. How many cosmic sands will I need for the much more complex, and vastly more consuming second and third layers? 1 million cosmic sands. 2 million cosmic sands. Luo Feng felt the pressure. To think of someone like He Duomo accumulating treasures worth just over 10,000 cosmic sands. This time it was just good luck, with the tremendous wealth from the rare treasure blue-purple blood crystal flower, that he had gathered enough to complete the first layer's foundation building. Luo Feng introspected his godly body. Within his massive 180 billion kilometer tall godly body, besides the original complex structure, there was an additional layer of secret treasure structure, with dense secret patterns infiltrating every drop of blood, deeply integrated into every piece of bone. The cost was great, but the effect is rather good, Luo Feng was quite satisfied. It's time to leave seclusion. With one thought, he packed up the Star Tower and lifted the formation seal of the underground palace. Boom 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 tilde tilde tilde. The passage of the underground palace opened, and Luo Feng flew out, arriving at his own cave mansion. Now it was night, with a cold wind howling, and the entire cave mansion was quiet. Morosa was not inside. Secluding myself for just over an era, for eternal true gods, is considered a relatively short seclusion. Luo Feng had decisively chosen to seclude himself properly to make up for his many shortcomings, especially after his first battle upon arrival in the land of origin, in which he had been utterly trounced. In just over an era, Luo Feng's various aspects had been sufficiently replenished. You've returned quite quickly. Luo Feng looked up, and with the sensation of soul enslavement, knew that Morosa had swiftly made his way back as soon as he had emerged from seclusion. Phew! A stream of black light flew into the cave mansion. It was Morosa, who from afar excitedly shouted while carrying a big jug of wine in one hand and a large piece of roasted meat in the other. Master, master, you've finally emerged from seclusion. I've been anxiously waiting. This video will end here.